Is up, y'all? Welcome back to episode 34 of That's No Moon Pod. I just got back from seeing The Flash, and I want to talk about it. Definitely was better than I was expecting. I remember freaking out whenever they dropped that new um, Super Bowl trailer during the game, and I got a buddy of mine who's a big diehard DC fan, DC movie fan, even. He loves all of them. Suicide Squad with Will Smith, Aquaman, you name it. He loves them. He loves them all. He thinks Batman v Superman is an amazing movie. He thinks the Justice League movie is a good movie. But that's his opinion, and I love him either way. But it is a funny kind of inside joke between he and I and a lot of my other friends that know how much he loves DC movies and the characters, and how for a long time now the DC movies have been not so great, but it's looking like it's going to get better from here, right? Hopefully. But I could get into that towards the end. Let me talk about this movie, y'all. Um right off the bat, Ezra Miller, I thought was amazing. I thought Barry Allen being played by the same actor, but in two different timelines. And by the way, I do my best, and I know Ezra Miller goes by they or them. So if I slip up and say Ezra Miller and the word he in the same sentence, I apologize ahead of time. Don't flame me for not having that, you know, glued into my memory for all my years of speaking, but I'll do my best. Again, I apologize ahead of time. But Ezra Miller to me was definitely, besides Sasha Kaye, Supergirl, which we'll definitely get into, the hottest person in the world, but Ezra Miller was definitely the highlight of this movie. Just the way they were able to play a younger version while playing the modern version of Barry Allen, but making them both feel completely different, to be honest. Whenever they would be talking to each other, you could distinctively tell which one is the younger Barry Allen and the older one, besides obviously the get up and the hairstyle and all that. But he could have just went in there and did the whole play the same part type of deal and just give me a different type of haircut. But I thought Ezra Miller's performance was definitely the most consistent thing about the movie. And when I say that, I mean just right off the bat, the way the movie starts with Barry Allen, he's late, he needs his food. The dude at the coffee shop's taking forever to make his sandwich. He's got Jeremy Irons, Alfred, calling him, saying, Bruce Wayne needs your help. Something's going on in the city. And Barry Allen's just trying to get his breakfast so he could go to work. He's already late. The the whole humor throughout the whole movie I thought was pretty consistent, funny. Like I said, Ezra Miller has great timing with the whole comedy bits, his whole facial expressions, and just the way that Ezra Miller just plays Barry Allen is super goofy and lovable, but it's not annoying, and you never hate him. He doesn't get on your nerves no matter what he does because it's Barry Allen, it's the Flash. And right away with the opening scene, having Batfleck back in the picture, just him being back in the suit and doing Batman things, I thought, we were all robbed from seeing the true potential of what Ben Affleck could have brought to the Batman character. Um, Even though I think he did the best he could with what he was given and what he was told, and I still think that no matter what you think of his portrayal or those movies that he portrayed Batman in, I thought he knocked it out of the park and was fully committed to the role of Batman, which is what you need. Um, but yeah, just the way the movie starts with Barry Allen saving all the babies from that collapsing building, and they kind of do their own take of the Quicksilver from X-Men: Days of Future Past, and definitely did not top Quicksilver. Um, the CGI and the scene with the babies falling and the dog definitely does kind of take you out of the scene for a while. And there is a couple moments throughout the movie to where the CGI just doesn't it just doesn't feel right whenever your eyes and your brain kind of put the two and two together, kind of takes you out a little bit. And even though I really liked the scene, it was real funny seeing just a ridiculous moment of babies falling from a building and Barry Allen trying to jump across rubble and debris, putting babies in microwaves and trying to dodge babies while trying to get snacks out of the machine to fuel up his energy so that way he has enough power to save everyone. It's just a completely ridiculous opening scene, but I enjoyed it, even though, like I said, the CGI was not that great on the babies and the dog. Um, but still a funny way and fun way to open the movie. And that's kind of what I liked about The Flash was the movie itself kind of just the pacing of it never really lets up, even though there is a lot of heartfelt moments with Barry and his mom and his dad. Whenever you see just him looking through time and seeing all the memories of him being a kid and when his mom was still alive, and just seeing what his dad's going through in jail, trying to avoid going to prison for the rest of his life for something he didn't do. And that's the whole movie pretty much, just Barry Allen trying to go back in time to make sure his mom doesn't die, and that way his dad doesn't have to go to jail forever. And I like the whole kind of different take with the whole time travel story, even though we've seen it a million times by now, especially with recent comic book superhero movies. But I thought the way they kind of handled it in this version of telling a time travel multiverse type of story plot was executed well enough to where you're not confused, to where you don't know exactly what's going on whenever we pop into a certain timeline. Uh, and right away, once Barry Allen kind of makes the choice to go back in time, and he's coming up with a plan on the spot pretty much, and boom, we pretty much get right into it once we see what happens to Barry's mom and the effect it has on him and what he's willing to do to change something in his life, but he doesn't know the bigger consequences of what his actions may do. And it kind of all goes back to what his mom and the relationship they had together and the things that she would tell him when he was a kid. But since we all know Barry Allen, he's not going to listen. And once we see that, he goes back in time and he thinks he's in one timeline when all of a sudden there's two of them because he just went back in time not knowing where he's at. And now he's got to deal with the younger version of himself. And once it's them two together, the two younger versions of Barry Allen, the whole dynamic of the movie kind of turns into a little bit of a Back to the Future type vibe to where you got one guy who knows what's going to happen and what's already happened, and he's trying to walk this other version of himself through what's going on and what he has to do to make sure that everything from here on out happens exactly the way it's supposed to. But of course, it doesn't. And we just get a lot of funny, cool moments between the two Barry Allens, just them communicating with each other, how they're the exact same person but completely different at the same time because one's young, dumb, and the other one's just the older, wiser, more experienced version. And I liked how once we know where we're at, we jump right into okay, General Zod is invading Earth. So right away, you know what timeline we're in and kind of what's going on at this specific moment in the DC universe. And you kind of see some backstory things of Barry Allen was actually there during the Man of Steel when General Zod attacked, but he had just got his powers yet. So he didn't fully have his abilities and couldn't control or harness everything yet. So when you see him saving that kid from the General Zod attack, but him not being able to rescue the kid's dad, uh, that's just one of those things that would make Barry Allen turn into the Barry Allen that we know as the hero. And I got to go back to whenever they would go through that whole thing to where they're looking at all the timelines and the different versions of each period in time, and going back to what I was saying about the CGI, this was the only kind of part of the movie because it happens multiple times to where Barry Allen has to run really fast and he's going super fast and he's going so fast that he's in this thing to where he could see the timelines and the people all around him, and he could kind of poke his head in and out and pick and choose or stop running to where he would like to be at. And it's just the way the animation and the CGI kind of looks on the characters. I had heard from people that had seen the movie um, that it was kind of Polar Expressy to them. And I remember when I heard that, I was like, Polar Express? Like, how is the CGI like Polar Express CGI? Because if you watch the Polar Express now, I can't even do it. That was never even one of my favorite Christmas movies to begin with because of just the way the CGI looked. When I was a kid, it just looked creepy. And now, if I try I, I couldn't do it. Just the way the CGI looks in that movie just completely takes me out of it because it looks like it wants to be realistic, but it's not. So then, what I was saying earlier, when your eyes and your brain kind of see it and put the two and two together, it just doesn't compute. And so when I saw that people were saying there was like Polar Express CGI, I was there's no way it could be that bad. But in those scenes to where Barry Allen is running and looking at all the timelines, and they have all the different people kind of popping in and out um, in focus. It just doesn't look that good. And I know the director commented even on the people saying about the CGI during these scenes, and he said that it's because Barry Allen's moving through time, and it's just kind of how his brain is perceiving everything. So it's not going to be crystal clear to him because of how he's running through time or something like that. But it's just pretty much him trying to, back up the visual effects artists and, all the people that worked hard on trying to have this movie come out when it did, even though this movie's been in production for years now. And who knows what it could have looked like at the beginning because after all the rewrites and reshoots that's been going on with the whole Ezra Miller controversy and just DC in general, um, which I will get into a little bit at the end of this uh, discussion. But yeah, just those were the only scenes. Those Polar Express time multiverse scenes just kind of take me out of it. And there's a part at the end where they do it like a lot, where they're just staying in there, and I'm just like, okay, dude, let's get out of here. Let's move on to some actual people on screen. But those are probably my biggest critiques of the movie, um, because once both the berries are together and they're trying to come up with a plan, and we finally get to where we finally meet Michael Keaton, Batman, once again. That whole scene with them fighting each other in Bruce Wayne's kitchen. He's all raggedy and long haired and bearded out with his chanclas and telling him the whole spaghetti string theory. And the whole scene was gold. And like I said, Ezra Miller had perfect comedic timing like he always does. And Michael Keaton's going to kill it with the comedy. And once we finally just get to them going down in the Batcave and Michael Keaton finally realizes what these dudes are trying to do, and at the end of the day, he's still Batman. And um, I gotta say, I was never the biggest, 1989 Batman. Michael Keaton was never my Batman growing up as a kid, even though I like those movies a lot. I have respect for those movies, and I know what those movies are in comic book movie history. Um, just like the original Christopher Reeve Superman, which cameo, uh, cool cameo, but Polar Express type cameo, but nonetheless, awesome to see that they did that, threw him in there. But Christopher Reeves isn't Superman to me, really, necessarily. Um, I would still say, man, see, it's hard for me to talk about Superman and who I think is Superman in my head. I guess it would have to be Christopher Reeves because Henry Cavill, even though he's the most recent and fresh in my mind, I just feel like they did him so dirty, and just the way those movies were played out with the Justice League and Batman v Superman. Um, Christopher Reeves, seeing him in this movie, Polar Express cameo, whatnot, still awesome. But just Michael Keaton back in the Batman gear, just it just feels right on screen. And I'm familiar with the music, I'm familiar with the nostalgia, and even though it may not have hit me to the levels of a lot of other people, I still thought it was awesome. Um, and I like Michael Keaton as Batman a lot, and I was excited to see what they were gonna do with him. And he actually has a lot to do in the movie. He's not just kind of this one and done, in and out scene, kind of like Batfleck is in this movie. He actually has a lot to do, and I like their chemistry between Michael Keaton and Ezra Miller throughout. Um, yeah, it's just cool to see Batman just do Batman things, and when it's Michael Keaton, um, it makes it that much more crazier. And once they finally go on the mission is okay. General Zod is attacking, so what they got to do? They got to get Superman, right? Well, as we all know from the trailers, there ain't no Superman. There's Supergirl, and Sasha Kaya is the hottest woman in the world right now. Okay, she's probably the second best part of the movie, only because she's not in the movie enough. She would easily be the best part of this movie if she was in it maybe 15 minutes more. Um, Barry Allen's and Batman, this whole rescue mission to go save Superman turns into them saving Supergirl. And it was really cool to see how they, once they rescue her, they get her outside, and then right away, okay, it's the sun. She's looking like she's dead, but once the radiation from the sun hits her, and then boom, she's just getting her powers back. And I liked how she was moving. She moved different than how Henry Cavill would as Superman. Um, she has more of that fierce. She fights like she's mad, and it's because she is mad. She's not like Clark Kent, to where he's not really wanting to do what he's doing or what have you. But Supergirl in this movie, she's ruthless. She's mad because once we find out later, General Zod not only is invading Earth, he's looking for Kal-El, but come to find out, Kal-El was a baby, crash landed on the pod. General Zod finds him, and what do you think General Zod did? And Supergirl is pissed because he just killed her cousin, and then that kind of leads into the whole big action scene between Supergirl, both Barry Allen's, and Batman, and they're taking on General Zod and his crew. And I thought the action scene was pretty cool. Um, I didn't think that younger Barry Allen learned too quickly his powers. Like he wasn't prime Barry Allen in the Justice League right away. He freaking gets shot like twice. He gets stabbed with a bunch of General Zod's guys' armor, and he's just constantly messing up. And I liked how they didn't just kind of Mary Sue him into making him just this right away powerful superhero who's just whooping everyone on the scene. Um, and since I kind of already talked about some of those CGI things with that, there's just one at the end during this whole climatic action scene to where, okay, once we finally get through the action pieces, um, Sasha Kaye is flying through there looking hot, whooping on General Zod. But come to find out, in this universe, she gotta die. General Zod has gotta stab her, take her energy, because she's what he needs, not Kal-El. That's why he killed baby Kal-El. And he's just supposed to kill her, leave her there, let young Barry Allen think he had a chance when he done, and take her energy and peace out. And Michael Keaton Batman also, he's got to go too. And at first, whenever he's flying around and he's shooting everyone in his ship, and um, he kind of is saying like he's gonna do the whole kamikaze thing with the General Zod ship, and he just flies into it, boom, and Barry Allen, of course, trying to go back in time and stop it to make sure Batman and Supergirl don't die, but they got to. It's just what has to happen, and that kind of realizes for Barry Allen that no matter what, even if the young Flash wants to stop it, his mom has to die, no matter what. And while we're in the whole Polar Express multiverse scene, and we get that whole version of Barry Allen who continued and stayed trying to change the past, and what he ends up eventually becoming, this crazy looking monster version of himself, and seeing the young Barry Allen make that sacrifice to save our version, or the modern version of Barry Allen, and taking out what he eventually would become. That way, the modern version could go back and make sure that his mom dies. Because without that, everything just gets messed up. And that's kind of the heart of the movie, is that whole thing with, it's not just love, but it's that thing that Barry Allen has with his mom. And just because she's gone doesn't mean, it's forever, and she's alive throughout time in different versions, and it's just what has to happen in his version to make sure that everything else is okay. And that whole scene where he goes back in time and sees himself from where we see him in the beginning putting the tomatoes in her cart. Now Barry Allen has to go back in time to take the can of tomatoes out of her cart, so that way she ends up dying. And that whole scene with him and his mom, um, like I said, Ezra Miller, great actor. You could just feel the whole theater just kind of tense up with emotion, just the way um, Ezra Miller and the actress who played his mom, you just really felt the love on screen, and made you feel like, you know, this guy really did all he could and would travel back in time, do anything to save his mom, but he knows that he has to take that can of tomatoes out so she could die, and that way everything else kind of falls back to the way it has to be. And once they kind of say their goodbyes, he sees the camera that the courtroom has of his dad in that supermarket, and it's all having to deal with him and his dad getting out scot free from jail, because this camera footage in the store shows his dad, but it didn't show his face. So once Barry Allen kind of sees that camera, all he had to do was just make sure that the camera actually sees his dad's face, instead of actually having to take the can of tomatoes from his mom's cart, because his mom's got to die, but that don't mean his dad has to go to jail too. So it's cool just kind of how everything plays out at the end. Um, like I said, the pacing of this movie was just nonstop, even with those, emotional scenes here and there. But besides some wonky CGI and some of the scenes, I thought all the actors and actresses killed it. I thought the directing was good. I know the director has been confirmed to be doing the Batman Brave and the Bold movie. So the next Batman movie, not Robert Pattinson, but the next Batman movie in the DC universe, we're gonna have the same director as we did in The Flash. And I gotta say, I'm confident in it. I'm not any less confident as I was beforehand after seeing the movie, but um, I guess that's a good thing. So we'll have that to look forward to. Um, and I got to talk about, of course, the very end of this movie. Uh, Once Barry Allen does the whole court case and that nosy chick that he likes finds him again and tells him to ask her out on a date. Um, if I was Barry Allen, that girl's she's a little too nosy for my taste. Uh, I would have to slide on that. Try to wait maybe if Sasha Kaye, Supergirl, comes somehow, some way into my life. I'd rather just wait on that if I was him. But once they kind of go through that whole scene to where he asks her out, he gets a phone call and it's Bruce Wayne. And when he answers the phone, at first I was like, that doesn't sound like Ben Affleck right away. I could tell. I was like, oh, is that Michael Keaton? Michael Keaton is alive. And then he's like, yeah, I'm pulling up. I'm pulling up. And he's like, oh, you're here right now. And here comes this fancy car. And here comes George Clooney, Bruce Wayne. What the hell? That was probably one of the crazier moments of the movie, I think. Even though we all know George Clooney Batman, those movies ain't good. But you bring in George Clooney in to play Bruce Wayne, that's cool. George Clooney's always cool. And I thought that scene was a funny way to end it. And the end credit scene, there's only one. And you got to stick around for the end credits. I thought it was funny too with Jason Momoa, Aquaman, Arthur, Barry at a bar. Are you kidding me? I don't know what that means for Momoa and Aquaman in the future of DC. Um, we still got his movie come out, Aquaman 2 and Blue Beetle this year. So we'll see what happens with those. But hopefully they can stick around in the upcoming DC movies because everyone loves Momoa. But as for Ezra Miller, now I've been praising Ezra Miller's portrayal of Barry Allen in this movie, which I think they deserve. Um, I don't think Ezra Miller is returning as the Flash, though. I think this is kind of the end for Barry Allen and Barry Allen's story as we know it. Um, just kind of the way they handled certain storylines with, obviously Michael Keaton and Supergirl, um, and just certain things, the way they played out in this movie, is kind of making me believe that's kind of the direction that we're heading. Um, Even though I wish and hope Ezra Miller finds help and learns from the mistakes that they made and is able to bounce back in the future because they're a great actor and I would like to see where their career goes in the future. But they gotta bring back Sasha Kaye. They got to. They gotta find some way. Bring in Wally West to bring her back. Someone, but that's gotta that's gotta be the main priority. Um, I know the movie underperformed from what the projections were at the box office. Um, Do I think there's some kind of political backlash or boycotting going on with this movie? Yes and no. I mean, it's definitely happening. I think if anyone says, "Oh no, it's just people were tired of superhero movies, or people were superhero fatigue, or CGI fatigue, or whatever," um, that's definitely part of it as well. But I think there's also people out there that are saying Ezra Miller's in this movie. Forget Ezra Miller. I ain't gonna go support that. You know, um, which is sad, but at the same time, it is what it is. Things haven't been going the comic book superhero way as it has been in the box office past few years, but this movie for sure is not a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes, in my opinion. I would give it a solid 3.2, 3.3 maybe out of 5. Um, Definitely not a perfect movie. Um, Definitely not my favorite movie of the year at all, but I was entertained throughout the whole thing. I wasn't bored. I didn't want it to be over at any point. I just thought some of the CGI could have been done better. Um, and really, that's my only critique, besides Sasha Kaye not getting, an extra hour and a half of screen time, But we can't have it all. Um, but hopefully, they could kind of keep whatever momentum they have after this movie and keep it rolling for Blue Beetle, because Blue Beetle looks awesome and I want Blue Beetle to do well. Um, and yeah, this is gonna be a crazy time for just comic book movies. Everything's getting pushed back, and I'm sure everything isn't done yet. But I'm interested to see what y'all have to say about the movie. Let me know what y'all think. Let me know what y'all thought. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to talk about, specifically in this movie. Um, I mean, like I said, besides the CGI and whatever that decision was to try to make it seem like it was intentional, is just, come on, guy. Um, but yeah, I still enjoy the movie. But let me know what y'all thought. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at admire my moonsault. And this is what I'm gonna need y'all to do. Follow me on Snapchat as well at admire my moon pie. I'm posting every comic from now on my Snapchat. So on my Instagram, I'll be posting the variant covers of these comic books that I'm reading, new releases every week. And then on my Snapchat, I'll be posting the variant covers, but with every single full page. So if you want to read full comic book, new releases, you follow me on Snapchat at admire my moon pie, and you could go on there, read the comic book, screenshot them, do whatever you want. Pretty much have free comic book, brand new one. Just screenshot them, and you can read it. So follow me on Snapchat at admire my moon pie, Instagram at admire my moonsalt, which has all my links on there. Follow me on Twitch at admire my moonsalt. This has been episode 34 of That's No Moon Pod. Episode 35 will be coming out later this week. We'll be back on the UFO alien topic. But I had to come on here, get my thoughts on The Flash. Really enjoyed it. Glad I went to go see it. Y'all let me know what y'all thought of it as well. But I think that's all I got. Until next time, y'all have a great rest of y'all's week. Y'all stay safe. and I'll catch y'all on the flip. Peace.